Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Clarksville's Political Forum. I'm Van Stokes, your moderator for today's session, and on behalf of Leadership Clarksville and your Clarksville Area Chamber of Commerce, we're glad you could join us today. Once again, today's forum is coming to you from the facilities of the Mass Communications Department here on the campus of Austin Peay State University. And as always, this forum is intended to give you, the voters, an informed choice when you go to the polls on November the 6th. Today, we're going to have the opportunity to talk with the candidates who are going to be on the ballot for mayor of the City of Clarksville. They are Ms. Kim McMillan, Mr. Bill Sommers, Mr. Joe Pitts, and Mr. DaJuan Little. Now, in a moment, they will each have 2 minutes in which to present opening comments from their seats at the table. Following their opening remarks, we will then turn to our panelists for questions. Joining us today are our panelists, Mr. Jay Albertia, Mr. Lee Irwin, and Mr. Jimmy Settle. Now, each candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to each question in a rotating order. At the conclusion of the questioning, each candidate will have 2 minutes in which to present a closing statement. Closing statements will be given in reverse order from the opening statements. Our timekeeper for this session is Miss Yvonne Pickering. As the top elected official in our city, the mayor oversees the administration and the general supervision of day-to-day activities of all of our city departments. As the chief executive officer for Clarksville, the mayor is responsible for the formation and management of the city's annual budget. Clarksville, long considered a regional hub for jobs and commerce, has experienced tremendous growth throughout the years. With this growth, the challenges have been many. As you can see, we have a full slate of candidates and a lot of ground to cover. Now, let's hear the opening comments from each of our candidates. Let's begin with opening remarks from Ms. Kim McMillan.
Hello, I'm Kim McMillan, and I am your mayor. I have had the greatest privilege of my public service career to serve as the mayor of the 5th largest city in the state and one of the fastest growing cities in the entire Southeast. I believe that I am so lucky that the city charter provides that the city mayor is allowed to serve 3 successive terms of office. So this will be my 3rd and last term, and I am so thankful that I have this opportunity because I believe that public service is the greatest calling. I have been honored and privileged to serve as the state representative for this area for the 67th District for 12 years, and I was fortunate to be elected by my colleagues to serve as majority leader in the Tennessee General Assembly, which gave me the leadership experience that I needed. I was then able to come back and serve Austin Peay State University, both as a faculty professor and also as part of the administration of the university. I then was able to run for mayor. I was given this great privilege in 2010 to be elected by you, the voters of Clarksville. I was then re-elected in 2014 thanks to all of the goodwill of the citizens of this community. As I said, I believe that public service is of the highest calling, and I believe that it is our duty to listen to the voters, to find out what they want to see in their city, and I believe that I have done that for the past 8 years, and I would be honored and privileged to get your vote to continue for the next 4 years. So thank you so much again, and I look forward to this forum and want to thank everybody who has had a part in making this possible. Thank you.
And thank you. Next, we'll have opening comments from Mr. Bill Sommers.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bill Sommers, and I'm a candidate for city mayor. I come to you offering my services to the community that my wife and I call home. I'm honored to have served our nation as an Air Force officer, retiring to Clarksville in 1994. We have a long family history of work in Clarksville, going back actually to the founding of the community. I've been married to my wife Cindy for 38 years, and I have 2 daughters. My oldest one recently blessed us with our very first grandchild. Our younger daughter we lost in 2007 at the age of 16 to cancer. My wife and I sponsor scholarships for students in the local area that have experienced the cancer battle and want to go to college. I've been honored to serve as a city councilman for Ward 10 for 8 years. Been involved with a number of local organizations and boards, including the museum and Community Action Agency. Currently, I'm the vice chairman for the Clarksville-Montgomery County Crime Watch program. Also, I am the local chapter and state legislative liaison for the Military Officers Association. On that aspect, I've helped write several bills that were recently passed by the legislature which affect our military and veterans and their families. It is my service to the country, the state, and community, my education, training, and experience, and the networks of communications that I've established that I bring to the table for you to review in my attempt to become your mayor. Clarksville has many issues, but these issues are also opportunities to help make Clarksville better. It's time to stop the continual talk, endless cost studies, and political intrigue and delay. It's time to take actually the plans we do have on the shelf and work them for the benefit of our infrastructure, taxes, public safety, and jobs for our small business people. Today, I hope to show you that I am the candidate that can best utilize this education, experience, and abilities and bring forth the best for Clarksville. I hope to build a better Clarksville with your help. Thank you.
And thank you for those opening remarks. Next, we will hear opening remarks from Mr. Joe Pitts.
Thank you, Van, and good morning. Thank you to Leadership Clarksville and to the Clarksville Area Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this forum, and we look forward to a vigorous debate. My name is Joe Pitts, and I want to be your next mayor for the city of Clarksville. As has been said before, for the past 12 years, I've served this community as state representative in the House of Representatives. And as wonderful as that season has been, this election, this campaign is not about me, and it's not about the past. It's about you, and it's about our future. You know, it was said that the beauty of our democracy is the competition of ideas. And so I would imagine you're going to hear a lot of ideas today and a lot of competition. But our campaign is really about having a world-class customer focus. We want to give our city employees, the tools and training they need to do their jobs, and we want to hold them accountable, especially management and especially the city mayor. We want to also focus on homegrown enterprises to give them the environment they need, nurture their growth so that they can then grow and create opportunities for our citizens. Public safety is very important as well, and we want to focus on community investment, neighborhood by neighborhood, including and especially our historic downtown. Again, you'll hear a lot about our vision, our hopes, and our dreams for the future of this great city that we call home. And I hope you'll vote for me. My name is Joe Pitts, and I want to be your next city mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have opening comments from Mr. DaJuan Little.
Thank you. I am humbled and honored to be up here, and just thank you for having me out here. I look forward to this campaign and running to prove myself worthy of the vote of Clarksville. My name is DaJuan Little, born and raised in Clarksville, and I'm just a regular man who was blessed to live in an amazing city. And I want to make sure that Clarksville is having all its needs met and that the people's voices are being heard. Currently, I serve as a sheriff deputy where I love serving the community. I've been doing it for over 8 years. I get to go out, meet with different people, every aspect of their life. I get to know them. And I really get to talk and understand what their issues are concerning Clarksville. And I want to make sure that going in this campaign, the only thing I focus on or push forward if I make it into office is whatever issues that people present to me. And I want to make myself available at all times. A main thing is also to, while I'm running, I don't only want to say what I'm going to do, I want to show you how I'm going to implement it and how I'm going to do it. I have different projects going on right now before I even get into any kind of office to let you know that I am listening and I am hearing and I am doing what I need to do to make sure Clarksville is growing the way it needs to be growing and that people come first. And I also want to encourage everybody out there to stand up, be a part of change, work towards, building Clarksville together, because I really believe that everybody has something to contribute. And I want to make sure that everybody is doing what they can to contribute to it, and a little can do a lot for Clarksville, and I want to be your next mayor.
Thank you very much. Now that we've heard the opening remarks from each of our candidates, it's time to turn to our panelists for the questions. We'll begin with Mr. J. Albertia. And Mr. Albertia, your question goes first to Ms. McMillan.
Ms. McMillan, how are you? It's time for us to try to start looking at what your priorities are and each one of your priorities. So we've talked about a lot of ideas so far in your opening statements. What are the three greatest priorities do you see for our city at this time?
Well, I have to tell you, the first priority is always the people. It's always being sure that everyone is represented in their government. So one of the greatest priorities would be making sure that we have a dedicated and public safety department that has the tools they need to make sure that our citizens are safe. We also need to make sure that we have an infrastructure program throughout the city of Clarksville where everyone has equal opportunity to be able to travel across our city, be able to get to work, be able to get to where they need to go. We also need to make sure that we have the kind of environment that allows people to have the recreational opportunities and other opportunities that they have to enjoy our great city and enjoy life. So there are many, many priorities. Those are some of the three that I think are very important. But I also want to say that I think the people and making sure that they have a role in government is the most important.
Mr. Sommers.
I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands of people over the last year and a half, and the reoccurring theme is infrastructure, getting from point A to point B. The city is going to have to take more emphasis upon itself to initiate the actions that will build roads and sidewalks. That's another major concern, particularly around our public schools. So that's going to be number one. Public safety is another major concern. It seems like if you watch the Nashville news or read the paper, it's always a theft, a shooting, unfortunately murders in our city. Our police force has got to be staffed to meet the needs. Currently it's understaffed, and we've got to address that issue. Another area, though, that we've got to look at, you cannot affect infrastructure, taxes, help with jobs, or do planning without looking at the city budget. Right now, we're going to be looking at a shortfall in the next budget year. We've got to be able to address that. I've got some plans I think that'll work and save and keep the money in your pocket, but still keep the city efficient in trying to provide the services that the citizens want. Thank you.
Mr. Joe Pitts.
Thank you, Van. Thanks for the question, too. Top three priorities, traffic, traffic, traffic. If you've tried to get across town at any point, you know it's difficult to go to connect between the major arteries, so traffic certainly is. It's not about just working with the Tennessee Department of Transportation. It is about creating relationships with the Tennessee General Assembly to ensure that we're speaking with one voice as a community, city, county, together, working together to achieve that goal. Secondly, recreation. I'm interested in regional recreation projects. If you live in Hazelwood, it's difficult to go to Heritage Park for the large soccer tournaments. So we want to focus on making sure that those facilities are nearby for the working families to take advantage of. And then customer service. If you make a call, you should get a call. You should know that your need is being responded to timely and not have to guess as to whether they got the message. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Little.
The three greatest priorities, not of my opinion, but of the opinion of the people I've talked to during this campaign, public safety is the main issue. Clarksville is an amazing place to live, but we want to make sure everybody in Clarksville is being taken care of and that they are able to enjoy all the great resources of Clarksville safely. So I want to make sure we have proper lighting in the neighborhoods, sidewalks, and not only that, I want to build up on our infrastructure. We have amazing resources here that other cities aren't privileged to have. And so I want to make sure we're utilizing all these resources to the fullest and coming up with innovative 21st century solutions that will solve all our problems while in the process generating revenue that we can then use towards other resources in our city. And I want to improve the quality of life of each and every individual living and working in Clarksville, because they're the reason that Clarksville is as great as it is.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Lee Irwin for the next question, and we'll go to Mr. Bill Sommers for the first response.
Mr. Sommers, our city is growing in leaps and bounds, and what would you offer as a way to help keep up with that continuing growth?
Well, the biggest thing we've got to start working on is strategic planning. We cannot be planning 12 months at a time. We do that in the budget, and it seems that also drives what we try to accomplish in the city. We've got to be looking 3 to 5 years in the near term, 5 to 10 years in the intermediate term, and out to 20 years in the long term. Because the budgets we build today are what will influence what we're able to do in the future in terms of spending and budgeting and revenue generation right there. Now, we've got plans on the shelf. We're ignoring most of those. What we've got to try to do is look and see what is going to be the requirement to fund those requirements. Work with the council members, set up a priority list, because they are the direct connection to the people in their ward. If we can work that priority list along with the priorities that I have, then we can build the budgets to meet that, looking at the long term and schedule stuff out. We've got to quit looking at the short term, and that's the biggest handicap we have at this time. 3 to 5 years minimum that we need to be planning and looking at. Thank you.
Mr. Pitts.
Thank you, Van. Thank you, Lee, for the question. Planning, we can't just lurch from one issue to the next. We've got to do a little bit better job about planning and forecasting. Bill's right. We have to be strategic in our planning. And then we've got to re-engineer the way we do our city budgets. We can't just all of a sudden find out that we've got a $40 million this or that project that's coming up. We've got to be smart, much like the Airport Authority did a few years ago when they knew they needed a new terminal. So they began to plan and put aside money and build up a balance in their fund balances in order to take care of some of that. And then we've got to be good partners with our major institutions in this community, Fort Campbell, Austin Peay, our school system. And we've got to bring those folks to the table on a regular basis, and not just when there is a crisis to address or when there is a major need. We've got to be able to look into the future and address that. But growth is going to happen. I've lived in communities that aren't growing, and believe me, we'd rather have it, but we got to be smart. Thank you.
Mr. Little.
Clarksville is steadily growing, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon. We're projected to be the 4th largest city, and with that will come a lot of problems and issues that we haven't been keeping up with. So I want to make sure in all of our planning, we're being proactive in our decision making, and what we're going to do is going to influence for years later on. And I definitely look forward to meeting out with the community in other cities. If we're going to pass up Chattanooga, let's do research into what Chattanooga is doing to handle their current population and infrastructure. We are not Chattanooga, we are Clarksville. We're different from every other place around, but there's different ideas and solutions that we can put into place to help us grow. And I really want to make sure that we grow at the right pace, and that we are, providing the resources well above what is necessary now and what will meet our needs in the future to come. Thank you.
Ms. McMillan.
Thank you, and thank you for this question. Growth is always something that we have to talk about. In fact, I have been facing that challenge, I think, as long as I have been in public service, both in the state level and now at the local level through the city. And I can tell you that we, I believe, have done an excellent job through the City of Clarksville of dealing with the growth and managing the growth. And I say that because we continue to grow. If we weren't handling this issue well, people would not be continuing to come to Clarksville to live and work and raise their families. We have to deal on a one-year budget because that's the requirement of our charter, that we pass a budget on an annual year. We do plan each year to move forward and plan for projects. In fact, we have continually provided for new and projects and been able to fund them because we plan with our finance directors to make sure that we are going to be able to afford the new projects that we have in the future. We have some great projects, and I'm looking forward to continuing on with those projects.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jimmy Settle, we're going to turn to you for the next question, and Mr. Pitts, you're going to have the first response.
Thank you. Mr. Pitts, as you know, along with, we're looking ahead today to November 6th, a big election day, along with choosing the next city mayor. Probably the other item on the ballot that I would say is going to bring out the most voters is this whole question of consolidated government, and here we are at it now for a third time in our history. The current movement of consolidated government, I'd like to hear what you think about how this has been undertaken. What do you think about the proposed charter that has now gone public, and maybe you've had a chance to read through it a little bit. And what do you think about consolidated government for Clarksville, Montgomery County in general?
Thank you, Jimmy, for the question, and certainly that's a major topic on the minds of a lot of people in our community. You know, if we were one city, we wouldn't even be having the conversation about whether we combine city and county government. I've read the charter. I've got some serious questions about it, such as what happens to city employees and their families if the governments are combined. The Urban Services Council, the top 3 vote getters. If I live in Bel Air, Birchwood, or Brandon Hills, I have no chance being a top 3 vote getter because of the density of the population and the way things are going. So while we should have a conversation, I have some reservations about the current charter, and I look forward to getting more information as all the voters do, because I'm just one vote. I'm just one person in this process. And it shouldn't be a litmus test, but it also ought to be a very important issue that everybody just really delves into and makes sure they understand it before they vote yes or no. Thank you.
Mr. Little.
That the consolidation is a hot topic right now. There was a lot of hard work put in by the Charter Commission to come up with the charter that is out. I've read through it. It's like Mr. Pitts says, I'm only one vote. My vote is not in support of it, but I want everybody else to go out there, read the charter, and make an educated decision as to which way you should vote. I do have some concerns about it that I hope will be addressed maybe later on through more discussions and other topics, the cost aspect of it. I do want to make sure that we're making a decision, an educated decision that will greatly benefit the needs of the city and the county. And not only that, I want to work with the county. If it doesn't go through, I want to make sure that we're working with the county to take care of every citizen here.
Thank you. Ms. McMillan.
Thank you. And this is a hot topic and a very good question to be answered now. I can tell you this. I believe that consolidation can work in a community. We don't have very many. We only have 3 counties out of the 95 in Tennessee that are actually consolidated, so it takes a lot of work to be able to answer those questions. I am, like the other candidates that are here, very concerned about this particular charter. I think there are provisions in this charter that do not benefit city residents and don't benefit those that live in the unincorporated areas. So I am not in favor of this particular charter draft, even though I know the commission worked hard on it. I think there are just far too many unanswered questions, especially in the area of the law enforcement piece that is provided in the charter, because we have a wonderful accredited law enforcement agency in the city that would be basically abolished if this went through and we went to just the sheriff's department, which is a not accredited department. So I am extremely concerned about it. I am not in favor of this version of the consolidation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Bill Sommers, your response.
I believe the concept of consolidation can work if there's a detailed plan. My own background in organizational redesign shows that it can be done. It can be more efficient and cost savings. I commend the Charter Commission. I believe it's been 22 years since the last effort was made. There have been many improvements in this, but as my colleagues up here have said, there are a number of questions. A lot of those deal with pay issues, making those uniform across the board. And it seems like while the overall charter covers the concept of government, the subordinate functions, law enforcement, fire department and stuff, are not spelled out. And when issues come up, it leaves it up to the mayor or the council to try to figure those out. There's not any more data to be had. I've reviewed through it. I've got great concerns on this, but I think from the standpoint, I'm going to remain neutral and actually not vote on this, because I believe to vote against it is self-serving. As you know, there's going to be if it passes, there's an election in August of 2020 for a new mayor and a new council. If it fails, one of us retains the job for 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And as everyone should know, that issue will also be on the ballot November the 6th. Let's go back to Mr. J. Albertia. Your question goes to Mr. DaJuan Little for the first response.
Mr. Little, hearing all of your responses concerning consolidated government, If it does not pass, what are some areas that you think the city and county could improve in their working relationship on?
If it doesn't pass, I definitely feel the city and county can work together with the public safety aspect of things to better serve the community as far as getting sidewalks and the streets well lit, and also the neighborhoods. But not only that, work together in presenting a plan to the state to get some of our necessities and issues taken care of. I want to make sure that with every step and process, the best interest of the people is going forth. And so I would even welcome having meetings, combined meetings between the county and the city to best find solutions for our problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McMillan.
Thank you. That is a very good question. And what I think needs to happen is we need to continue to do what we're doing right now, because what I see is an effort to make sure that we do have two separate budgets and there's two separate tax bases. You have city taxpayers who are paying city tax pay for certain services, and then everyone pays county taxes for certain services that are provided by the county. So where we can help each other is ways that I have done throughout my entire time as mayor, both with 4 years as Mayor Carolyn Bowers and now 4 years with Mayor Jim Durrett, and that is work together to make sure that our community is on the shining light of the world stage. Mayor Durrett and I have gone to Washington on 3 occasions together to offer testimony to Congress to make sure that our businesses like LG and Hancock and Google get the help they deserve from the federal government. That's where we can work together. That's what we're doing now, and that's what we need to continue to do in the future to make sure we get the best businesses here, the best employers, and the best efforts for our community.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bill Sommers.
Well, it's no secret, particularly from the county side, that city-county relations are about as low a ebb as they've been in recent history, and we've got to improve that and work together. Now, there's 3 main areas that I see the city and the county can work together. One is the continued redevelopment of downtown. If we can make downtown a shining star, we can generate new taxes, new jobs, new quality of life opportunities for our citizens. The other area we need to look at where we can both combine is business generation. We need to be able to make it more streamlined, whether in the county or the city, to be able to open a business, look at the fees that are being charged, and help provide the incentives out there, such as tax incremental financing, to bring in those new businesses. The other thing is we need to speak with a unified voice, both at the state level and the federal level, where both mayors go in unison with each other to work on the issues that are required for our city, such as roads, new development, new industry coming in. And those 3 things, we could work together. We could make a major improvement of what's been happening in the last 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Joe Pitts.
Thank you, Van. Thanks for the question, Jay. If the consolidated government issue doesn't pass, there are ways for the city and the county to combine forces on services they offer to not only to the citizens but to employees, such as the employee health clinics that both the city and the county have separate contracts with. I think that would be a great way to look at combining those resources to better serve the workforce that's out there. We have a regional planning commission. It's called Regional for a reason. The city and the county work together and jointly fund that agency to come up with plans in order to address efficiencies and needs in the community. Communication, I'm a big believer in communication. I think we've got to do a better job of the 2 governments communicating together. Neighborhood councils is another thing where we get city council and county commission members together to address neighborhood needs such as traffic and public safety and recreation opportunities. So those are just some of the things that city and county can come together and work toward. It doesn't have to be huge projects and big things. It can be just as simple as talking to each other. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you've just joined us, you're watching Clarksville's Political Forums. And today we're meeting with candidates who will be on the ballot November the 6th for mayor for the city of Clarksville. They are Ms. Kim McMillan, Mr. Bill Sommers, Mr. Joe Pitts, and Mr. DaJuan Little. Let's go back to our panelists now. Mr. Lee Irwin, you have the next question, and it goes to Ms. Kim McMillan for the first response.
Mrs. McMillan, we've talked about city and county working together and participation, but Let's talk about public participation now. How would you propose to stay connected with the residents of the city to, say, increase their involvement in the planning of the city's future?
Well, I think that is something that is so important. As I said earlier, I think that public participation is the key to any good government. And what we have done and what we will continue to do and what I hope to do is to make government accessible to the people. We first put our government online, we put it on TV, we made it accessible to people. They are public meetings, and we urge and require really everybody to come out. We have meetings out in the public to make sure that they're aware. I make it a personal point to go to as many events and others where we can communicate with the public. I think we need to continue to get out with the public, meet with the individuals, talk to people, find out what their concerns are, and I think that can all be done as we're doing it now, and continue to interact with them so that we can have them play a more greater role in their government. Thank you.
Mr. Sommers.
Well, I think there's several things we could look at to improve that, and one of those I would look at my level is actually having a council of business people, looking at the different regions of the city and sit down and invite business leaders, business owners in those areas and sit down with them, because there's a different aspect to what they and their families look at in our community and what their needs are. The other thing is I would look to try to get a commission of church members together, the clergy. They have their fingers on the pulse of what's happening in their communities, in the streets out there. And with them, we can maybe help plan and address some of the needs that are affecting many of the people out there. Third is, we've got 12 council members out there. So the city is divided up into zones. I would encourage them to have periodic meetings with their council representatives and members. And I would go out to be and attend those and answer questions along with the council members. I think this would give us a good flow of communication from all aspects of our city and the people that are in the different components that make up our city and its businesses. Thank you.
Mr. Pitts.
Thank you. You know, I put this sort of under the category of citizen engagement. You know, Bill mentioned working with city council members. You know, they're elected to represent their wards. So they have their finger on the pulse, to use a well-worn phrase, of what the needs are. And I think it's incumbent upon the mayor's office and the mayor in particular to work with city council members to address those needs. Sit down with council members and find out what's on their mind, what's going on in their ward, and what's coming up, so that we can begin to address. As simple as if there's an event in a park or at a church or at a community center in their ward, we need to be able to bring services to that in order to enhance the event. The other piece of that would be citizen surveys. You know, it seems trite, but people like to be asked their opinion. So why wouldn't we engage them in a survey, use online and the old-fashioned pencil and paper, and get from them what their hopes and dreams and their needs are, what they see. And you can't do that once a year. You can't do it once every 4 years. That has to be an ongoing effort. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Little.
I want to definitely involve the public in everything we do. I want to form a neighborhood committee where young adults from every neighborhood come out and represent the interests of their particular area or neighborhood. That way we're getting the direct issue from the people. Not only that, I believe in working in the community and not just from behind the desk. So if we have something that needs to be done, I'm going to be on the forefront, being out there helping them. I believe that I'm not going to ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And I want to encourage everybody to also take that same stance and be out in the community, be active in it. Let's build up our areas. Also, I want to make sure that we have an open data portal. One stop online where people can check such things as what's going on in the community, what's going on with a project, a street project, a sidewalk, how's my tax money being spent, what exactly are the bus routes, when's the bus going to be here. I want to make sure that everything is laid out on the table, easily and accessible for each and every person in Clarksville.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jimmy Settle, you have the next question, and it goes to Mr. Bill Sommers for the first response.
Okay, Mr. Sommers, it's time to wax philosophical just a little bit, if we may. But to help enable our voters to know you a little better, I'd like to hear from you what sort of this defining moment was for you that said to you, I want to be mayor of Clarksville. What is it truly about this job that appeals to you?
Well, I think the position of mayor is unique in itself. There is no other position that provides the vision for a group of people. I mean, you can look at a state governor, you can even look at the President of the United States. Now, those are different levels and different responsibilities. But if you have the heart to serve your community, then you're worried about where it's headed, where it's going, what are you accomplishing. The position of mayor has that ability to do that. Now, I've been a city councilman, and councilmen need to work with the mayor to help implement, help build that vision, which also comes from the ground roots of the people themselves. But the mayor is uniquely qualified to actually lead the people and the community in the direction it needs to go. That one position has a lot of yay or nay say on what is accomplished in our community. That is the reason I believe the challenge is worthwhile and why I offer myself to do the job. Thank you.
Mr. Joe Pitts.
Thank you, Van. Jimmy, thank you for the question. There's a picture floating around on social media that I posted when I was in high school. I had gotten upset over something that was happening in our community. I wrote a letter to the editor that my parents to this day still cringe at the thought of reading and thinking about. But I had the desire back then to be mayor of this wonderful city. You know, I answered the clarion call for service, not just when I ran for the legislature, but serving our community, serving on numerous boards and in community organizations. We serve our church by doing whatever it takes in order to further the advance of the call. You know, one of my favorite scriptures is, I come to serve and not be served. So I've come to serve this community, my hometown, that I love so dearly, as mayor of this great city. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. DaJuan Little.
I definitely knew that I wanted to run when you currently see the growth going on in Clarksville, and a lot of people will talk about solutions that they want to come up with and say nobody's listening. I want to make sure that we're listening to those solutions and implementing them. And I want to encourage and inspire other people to stand up and be part of our change. Not only that, I want to make sure that Clarksville, we are currently growing and changing with new ideas and innovative solutions. I want to make sure that they're being nurtured and listened to. Clarksville has been amazing to me, and there's so much that I'm grateful for. And this is my opportunity to give back just a little bit of what Clarksville has given to me and share that same experience with each and every person in Clarksville. Thank you.
And Ms. McMillan.
Thank you. I think this is really the key question that we're going to have this morning in this forum, and that is, what is the reason that each of us are sitting here want to do this? What was the key that made you do this? I can say it came from my parents, who told me, you know, you have an obligation to go to school, to get an education, to do something for yourself, which I did, but they said, when you get to where you want to go, when you have achieved what you think you need within the private sector, you have an obligation and a duty to give back. Give back to your community, to your state, to your country, to do something about it, to pay it forward. That's what I felt when I decided I needed to be part of public service. I needed to go and do that, and that's what I did. I ran for the legislature, but I realized that was too broad. I wanted to help the local folks. I wanted to be able to see the people that I was helping every day in the grocery store, in Walmart, in wherever I was on the street, to be able to really see the people that I was helping and to be able to help them, hear from them, and be able to do something about it. So that's what I believe has guided me to be mayor. That's what's guiding me to want to continue to be mayor, give back to this community. Thank you.
And thank you very much. We have time for one more question, and it's going to come from Mr. Jay Albertia, and it's going to go to Mr. Joe Pitts for the first response.
Mr. Pitts, I started the questioning out saying, what are the 3 top priorities each one of you have? The only thing that you all agreed on was infrastructure. We know there are a lot of construction going on roads right now in Clarksville. However, we know there are a lot of cars in Clarksville and a lot of people and more coming. In this 4-year term, if elected, each one of you, what are the major projects and roads that you would like to see accomplished in our community?
Thank you, Jay. Very good question. Very challenging because, as we know, there's a lot of major thoroughfares in our community that the Tennessee Department of Transportation controls, and the city can partner in order to make improvements. But we've got a lack of access between those major corridors. If you're trying to get from Madison Street to Wilma Rudolph Boulevard, you're trying to get from New Providence to Madison Street. If you're trying to get from St. Bethlehem to Fort Campbell, it's not always easy. You can't get there from here. You got to start somewhere else, as the old joke says. But I think what we've got to do is look at connecting those major arteries and doing everything we can, because frankly, private investment follows public investment. And so if the public sector is making that investment in roads and infrastructure and other things, I think we can see it pay for itself over the long term. But we've got to make a business case for it, and we've got to make sure we impact the residents as little as possible so that we don't disrupt their lives, their livelihood, and the family farm. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Little.
I want to make sure that in our infrastructure, we are expanding roads and doing as much as we can to get the state to assist in this expansion. Not only that, creating our own roads that we can maintain and take care of ourselves. And along with that, I also want to make sure that our traffic lights are working as efficiently as possible. I know I was driving through traffic the other day. There was a small fender bender. Everybody was safe, but traffic got backed up because the traffic lights they don't know what's going on around them. So I want to definitely start a smart city initiative to connect these lights to a central hub where we can individually maintain these lights and set them at different times and sections. And we already have a resource and infrastructure set up to control this. We just got to utilize it and make sure that we're using every resource available to us to improve the quality of life, improve traffic, improve our infrastructure. And I definitely will make sure we get that done.
Ms. McMillan.
Thank you. You know, that is a big question to answer in 1 minute, so I'm going to give it a try, but I don't know that I can address everything. I will tell you that here in the city of Clarksville, we are so fortunate to have a great relationship with TDOT. We have entered into several contracts to use a fund that we have set up, a road improvement fund, where we put tax dollars in there to be able to help TDOT come in and help us make our roads more passable. In fact, Warfield Boulevard is one that received a huge grant for that and a huge influx of dollars. Trenton Road is next. These are state roads that we can help because we have figured out a way to partner with the state and use our tax dollars to make sure we're getting that done. We've just gotten $1 million grant to be able to actually have a smart city traffic light on Wilma Rudolph Boulevard so that we can start seeing traffic move better. And we're doing it with a federal grant of $1 million that's going to make real changes in the traffic pattern. We've got 2 major city road projects that are going to be built that are going to help us relieve some of this traffic congestion by having city roads that are now going to help us make this shift into other roads. Thank you.
And thank you. And Mr. Bill Sommers.
Well, one of the top priority roads, which we've been playing with for almost 20 years, is the old east-west connector. Currently, one leg of it is now called the northeast connector. This is the east-west. We've got to build another major access from the top of Clarksville down to the southern part of the city. Now, if we had stuck to the plan we had back in 2010, we would have been driving on part of that right now. So we've got to remain consistent, and as has been said, what other cities have done is provide money to help TDOT. We may have to shoulder a bit more of the financial burden to accomplish this. Another major interchange we got to look at is the Dunbar Cave Cardinal Lane connection at Exit 8 with Rossview Road. This is a major clogged artery right now with the Rossview High School complex there, connecting that up to the hospital area. The other area we got to look at to improve roads deals with stoplights. You know yourself, if you get off at Exit 4 and you want to take a left into the county, you're taking your life into your hands. Some of these things we cannot wait for the state to do. We may have to fund and work with them to get them done ourselves. Thank you.
And thank you very much. A lot of energy, good ideas as well. Questions have come from our panelists ranging from priorities to traffic, public safety, recreation, planning, budgeting, growth, consolidated government, and roads. We've heard from our panelists, we've heard from our candidates in response to those questions. It's now time to turn to our closing remarks. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes in which to provide closing remarks, and they will come in reverse order from our opening comments. We will first hear from Mr. DaJuan Little.
I want to thank everybody for having me out. I'm both deeply honored and humbled to be here. It's an amazing opportunity that many people don't get to experience, and I want to make sure that during this experience and doing this campaign that I'm able to reach out to each and every person and make a new friend. During this campaign, I've met a lot of people and made a lot of new friends, and I definitely heard a lot of issues going on in Clarksville, and I want to make sure that we're dealing with those issues at the forefront. My parents raised me up to love God first and love others as you love yourself. And so I truly believe that in order for us to love each other, we've got to be out there working to build each other up. Clarksville is unique and it's different from any other place in the world. We have an amazing military community. We have an amazing university who, with growing ideas and knowledge is just constantly coming in. And I want to put our people at the forefront and show other businesses and communities that, hey, this is what we have in Clarksville. Clarksville is leading the way to the future. Come here and invest in us so that we may invest in our people and provide them the resources necessary so that they may continue to grow. And I want to encourage each and every person out there to go out, do what you can for your community, do what you can for your neighbor, get registered, vote. This coming election is going to be a big election, a lot of opportunities for growth and change. And I truly believe that everybody has within them the potential for greatness, and I want to make sure that that greatness is being brought forward, because a little can do a lot for Clarksville, and I definitely want to be your next mayor of Clarksville. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have closing comments from Mr. Joe Pitts.
Thank you, Van, and thank you again, excuse me, to the Leadership Clarksville and to the Clarksville Area Chamber of Commerce, to our panel of guests, judges, or panelists that are asking questions of us today. I also want to say thank you to DaJuan, to Bill, and to Kim for being willing to put your name on the ballot and run for an office. As any of the four of us can tell you, it's exhausting, but it's well worth it. My wife Cindy and I love this community. We've devoted ourselves to serving. We've devoted ourselves to service of this community. But this campaign, as I said at the top, it's not about us. It's about you, and it's about the future. I wrote down what I want to say, and what I have next is to say that over the next 70 days, excuse me, we look forward to talking to you before Election Day and listening. In fact, that's our number one priority, is to listen to you and what you have to say to us about your hopes and dreams. And what we've heard you say is that you have high hopes for our city. We've heard you say that you want good recreation opportunities. You want a safe community. You want a city government that responds to your needs. You want leadership who's committed, who cares, and who communicates. My name is Joe Pitts, and I'm running for the City of Clarksville mayor, not for the title, but to be able to serve you. And I look forward to that over the next few days, and I look forward to being your next mayor. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. We will hear next from Mr. Bill Sommers.
I'd like to thank the panel, my fellow competitors, the Chamber of Commerce, and Austin Peay State University for providing the opportunity and capabilities to address the citizens of Clarksville. I believe we have forgotten what the city mayor is really supposed to do. There are distinctive requirements that separate it from almost any other elected position. It is responsible for creating a vision for our community. It's responsible for setting the goals and priorities that we will try to achieve. We're responsible for inviting, involving, and working with the numerous and varied people and organizations of our community. It's responsible for setting a bar of excellence. And it's responsible for ensuring that just good enough is not good enough, and on occasion, to be the catalyst to get things done. Too often, as in the case of many mayoral elections, there's general talk about efficiencies, security, inclusiveness, transparency, and moving forward. The problem is we rarely address the specifics that go along with that. Providing specifics are measuring posts of how the mayor works. I am not afraid to give you those measuring posts, and I have stated those as the campaign started and as we will proceed. I've told you the steps I will take to try to avoid a multi-million-dollar revenue shortfall next year and the possible tax increases it will incur. I've presented to you by raising the level of our fire department, we can cut the insurance rates on fire for businesses and local residences. I've talked to you about how I will cut the operational cost of the mayor and legislative offices and use that savings to address the shortfall in public safety officers that we have out there and address the crime issues that we have. I've also been very proud in talking with elements and organizations across the middle state about how we can improve our efforts to get new entrepreneurs started in businesses and to help those businesses that are already started to grow and flourish. These are all steps which a mayor needs to look at and spell out specifically. This is the vision I have from Clarksville in talking with you and listening to your voices. I know together we can build a better Clarksville. Read more about my plans at summersformayor.com and on Facebook. I am Bill Sommers. I do ask for your vote. May God bless our community, our country, and those who provide the protections for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final closing remarks will come from Ms. Kim McMillan.
Thank you, Van, and thank you to everyone who took part in presenting this forum. It's so important because what it does is give you, the voter, the constituents, the opportunity to see and hear from those people who want to be your mayor. I'm Kim McMillan, and I am your mayor. And I have had the greatest honor and privilege for the last 8 years to serve you in this role. I ask you for your vote to continue for the next 4 years to continue to serve you. I believe that Clarksville is the best place in America to live, work, and raise our families. And I know that you think the same. Does that mean that we can't make improvements or do things better or do things differently? Absolutely not. I wake up every morning brimming with ideas and ways that we can continue to improve and do a better job in Clarksville to make sure that everybody has an equal chance in our government. Everybody has an equal chance to succeed, because that's what being in government is all about. That's what giving back, that's what paying it forward is all about. That's what I do every day, is to try to make sure that we're doing the very best job we can, and if we're not, that we make the improvements to move forward. We have done so many things over the last 8 years. The projects are too numerous to mention. We've done it all without a tax increase. And we've done that because I believe that it is my job to make sure that we are providing the best possible level of service at the most economical way for your tax dollars. I think that we're doing that, and I think we can continue to improve. And I ask for your vote. I ask in a very humble way to tell you that it has been the greatest privilege of my life in these last 8 years to be your mayor, and I ask you for the opportunity to move forward for the next 4 to do that very thing. Thank you.
And I want to say thank you to each of our candidates today, Ms. Kim McMillan, Mr. Bill Sommers, Mr. Joe Pitts, and Mr. DaJuan Little. Thank you all very, very much for sharing your time and your thoughts with us today, and for being willing to serve the city of Clarksville as our mayor. I want to remind you that early voting will take place October the 17th through November the 1st. The location will be at the Election Commission office at 350 Pageant Lane, Suite 404. And of course, the state general and City of Clarksville elections will take place on Tuesday, November the 6th. Thanks also to our panelists today, Mr. Jay Albertia, Mr. Lee Irwin, and Mr. Jimmy Settle. And thanks to our timekeeper, Ms. Yvonne Pickering. And also thank you to the Mass Communications Department here at Austin Peay State University for making this broadcast possible. And a special thanks goes out to Leadership Clarksville and your Clarksville Area Chamber of Commerce, who made this forum possible. Until next time, I'm Van Stokes saying thank you for watching.